Yeah, that's a wizard. 100%.
Calling the game right now. Dressed like the Michelin Man, ready to get my on.
A really good team that shouldn't have been.
7 different teams won conference championships. U of A not one of them. I just wanted to point that out.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm Chris. This is Dom. Just a couple of comics that are going to be talking sports. And who we got today?
Today we're going back to Summer Olympics. We just got done with Eric Heiden in the Winter Olympics. This is actually our first Summer Olympics video since Florence Griffith Joyner.
Yeah, since FloJo.
Since FloJo. And we're doing not track, though, today. We're doing the field part of track and field. And arguably the greatest discus thrower, not only in American history, but probably world history. We got Al Oerter today, Chris.
One of the greatest Olympic performers. I think that's something that we're going to go over was when the Olympics came around, that's when he stepped up.
Yeah, he always saved his best performances for the Olympics.
Yeah.
My God, amazing. But Al Oerter, born September 19th, 1936 in Astoria, Queens, and he's pretty much a New Yorker through and through.
Yeah. Definitely. That's something that you'll see is he's definitely a New Yorker and sticks with that, I think, his whole life. So,
pretty much, yeah. And why would you go anywhere else?
Yeah.
I mean, but he attended Siwanhaka, I believe is the name, high school in Floral Park, which is on Long Island. He came to the discus very later.
Well, he was originally wanted to be a sprinter.
Yeah, but he's a very large man.
Yes.
Which I don't know if is necessarily conducive to sprinting. And do you want to get into the story, how he started?
Well, he's on the track getting ready to do some sprints, and a rogue disc came over.
Yeah,
almost
a rogue
hit him.
disc.
Yeah, that's how I loved it.
It came from the trees, man.
Nobody knows where it came from.
The second gunman the second discus on the grassy knoll.
Back and to the left.
Back and to the left.
So this discus comes over, and he goes to throw it back, and he has this realization of like, oh, I can throw this way, way further than everybody else, and so did the coach.
Yeah, the coach was probably like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Hello?
He's like, I want you to be my discus thrower, because literally he throws it over the people that threw it to him. Like, that's how much further he threw it.
It'd be funny if he pegged the guy that actually threw it. Like,
oh, my God, that would be awesome.
What's up now?
Yeah.
But really finds his niche as far as the discus is concerned. It's almost like a Paul Bunyan origin story, you know?
He said he grew up playing baseball and football and he's 6'4". I don't think at this point, but he ends up being that big. So he's a big guy.
He's got a frame to pack muscle on to throw that discus.
He said he could always throw like decently well, and then just for some reason the disc just fit into his hand, and he got the motion right away, and just everything kind of clicked.
Like a glove. But he does so well in high school, obviously high school champion, because if you're out throwing people on the field, you're going to get a chance in college. And he gets a chance to go to the University of Kansas for all his high school accomplishments.
Yep, gets a full scholarship, gets a full ride. Mm-hmm. Pretty awesome because I think he goes to college 54, 55. Or no, 55, 56, 57, 58, because we see him in 56. This is why it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, he's still 19, 20 years old in 56. He gets a shot to go to the Olympics in Melbourne, Australia.
Well, he said he was, in the trials leading up, he was like 6th, 7th, and then he had his last throw, and it almost went out. And it got him to be 3rd and gave him that spot to go into these Melbourne Olympics.
It's almost like when Michael Phelps went to that first Olympics when he was like 15 in Sydney and just was like in the final heats but not winning. But you're like, oh, we have this guy on the team because he made it, but oh my gosh, what he could be. But Al Oerter's a little different story in his first Olympics.
Oh, absolutely.
I should note in 1956, they were held again, as I said, in Melbourne, Australia. He decides to go bananas during this competition with one of his throws.
Well, this is what I referenced earlier in that he really turns it on for the Olympics because
he's not winning the trials. He's making the team. He's he's obviously good enough to be on the team and competing, in these final events, but no one's really expecting anything out of him.
He wasn't even in, so like I'm pretty sure he was like 5 meters below everybody else. Like he had never thrown what everybody else was kind of averaging. And then the Olympics come out and he throws, and it's his first throw.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I absolutely love. First throw of him in an Olympic sport. You know what I mean? He does 184 and 22 inches, 184 feet.
That's amazing. And we're doing feet because we don't do the metric system, Royale with cheese style. But it's good enough to win him a gold medal.
Yeah.
And he outthrew everyone by 5 inches, which is crazy.
Oh, it's insane because he had never thrown that far. And now we see him be this like Olympic hero.
Yeah. In 57, he wins the NCAA because obviously he's not professional. So he wins the 57 NCAA championships for the Jayhawks.
And then
he almost dies.
Yeah.
He almost dies.
It all comes almost crashing down. He gets in a car accident that was like horrific.
Yeah.
And people are saying that he was near death in that.
Yeah, it's a good thing that he came out of that alive because he had so much more to give as far as his life is concerned and as far as his athletic career is concerned. He comes out of it. He wins the 58 NCAA championships for Kansas. But you have the 1960 Olympics in Rome coming up as he's still kind of rehabbing from all of the off track and field things that happened to him.
I was going to say, this is not at his peak physical condition. But we see that he shows up to this Rome Olympics and
after not winning the trials but making the team. In fact, on his team, a man named Rink Babka was the world record holder for the farthest Olympic throw or discus throw.
Everybody thought Rink Babka was going to really go in this and win. There wasn't really thought that Al really had any really shot. He was just kind of like another member on this USA team because Rink was really outthrowing everybody at this point.
In 4 of the first 6 rounds, Rink was leading everybody.
Yep.
And Oerter was not having a good day out there over there in Rome during the Olympics. But there was a story about how after his 4th throw, Rink went over to Al and gave him a little coaching technique session.
He said his left arm was at an improper angle and it was messing up his whole rotation. And he said as soon as he corrected it, because you can see it from the outside, I imagine.
Yeah.
But when you're in it, you're like, what is wrong? What is wrong? You're in your head. You're like all this stuff.
But your keen athletic eye will see it. And as nice and pleasant as that advice was, talk about one of your all-time backfires, Rink Babka.
Well, I'm going to bring this up later on. But he says that there was this kind of athlete camaraderie.
Yeah, that's what he always referred to, how much he loved it. It's like, yeah, you're competing against yourself. Yeah, you're competing against other people, but there's no vengefulness to it.
No, that's really what it was with him and Rink was like, hey, you're not doing what you should be doing. And he proceeds to throw 194 feet and 2 inches, which is his record. And I want to bring this up. Yeah, he just keeps breaking his record. So, and that was the thing.
He's doing it in the Olympics.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And what he was saying was like, he thanked Rink right after it, and he said, God, I hope you have a good throw. Because literally he wanted like the best to win.
Exactly, yeah. You don't do that, but Rink was probably like, well, thank you, and I'm going to hope and try and do it. But he ends up winning silver, Babka does, which, unfortunate for him, but Al Oerter, 2 straight Olympics, and he's what, 24 years old right now? 23? 2-time Olympic gold medalist in the same event.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then throughout the 60s, he sets, before coming up on the 64 and 68 Olympics, he's the first guy to throw a discus over 200 feet.
Well, I thought this was interesting. Rink actually had it unofficially with a course that had a little decline, actually, what it was. And they were saying that it was kind of ridiculous that it didn't get counted. And Rink said, this might be years before somebody does 200 feet.
Yeah.
And literally like 3 or 4 days after that, Al Oerter literally throws it 201.
Yeah.
And that's what Rink was saying. It was just like, oh, all right, now we're getting into this like discus of like how far can we go, because they just keep adding almost like every single year.
Well, you know what it is? It's probably just an improvement in technique.
Yep.
And as the athletes get bigger, you see those kind of, I won't say leaps and bounds improvements, but you see casual improvements and higher bars being set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So heading into the 64 Olympics, which are in Tokyo, Japan, Al's having more injury issues going into these games.
This one is, I think, for me, the most surprising.
Yeah.
Because he's going to end up winning.
This guy's a tough SOB. If you wanted to, talk about some of the grittiest sports athletes, this guy's in the conversation.
Well, he has a neck injury leading up.
And he's wearing a brace
for
at the Olympics.
Yeah, for like 2 weeks practicing leading up. And people were saying that he went to do a throw and just collapsed. And his coach said, when you see a man like this collapse, you know there's true pain.
6'4", 250, yeah.
And he literally tore cartilage in his ribs.
And especially with that twisting motion, you do with the discus, that has to feel like you're being stabbed in your midsection with an ice pick constantly.
They were saying right after it happened, he could barely lift his arm. And then
how do you even breathe properly?
That was the other thing that they were saying was you could see him in pain out there, but he just kept going for it. He ends up winning. Mm-hmm. Where was I want to see how much he did. 200 feet and didn't take his last throw.
No, he had the lead and he just said he couldn't do it.
Yeah. So he took 5 out of his 6 throws. And then this is my favorite.
Oh, I love this quote. Oh, it's so good.
Where he says, "These are the Olympics. You die for them." And that's
oh, that is badass.
After winning the third one with these injuries, you're just like, hell yeah, dude.
We can rebuild him.
Yes. Because that's the thing is it was such an amazing third gold medal where he goes in not as the favorite again,
not winning
the trials, and goes on to win this third gold medal because when the Olympics come around, he steps up.
He is the Miami, Florida Marlins of Olympic discus throwers. No division championships, but 2 World Series, times 2 now with the gold medals, as we'll get into. But yeah, these are the Olympics. I will die for him. That's a man who cares.
No, I love it. I love and this is the other thing was the athlete camaraderie because his other team members were really into this, achievement. They all kind of.
Yeah, and he would be applauding the other ones if they were winning the gold medal.
Yep.
It would just be the different scenario, but still the same kind of emotion. But he was only 32, and this is why that Melbourne one was so cool, is he's only 19, 20 years old when those come around. He gets to compete in his 4th straight Olympics because he's only 32 by the time the Mexico City Games come around in 1968. And again, didn't win the Olympic trials, probably not the best guy on his team as far as heading into the Olympics, but he'd die for him, right?
Well, I saw this... there was heavy rainfall, and he was the only discus thrower that went out in the heavy rain and practiced and warmed up. And he said he got into this mindset of, I'm the only one out here. And it was such a great thing in Mexico City where he gets into this mindset of you have to beat me to win.
You want to be the best, you got to beat the best.
And it's
Ric
true.
Flair. But Jim Sylvester was one of his teammates who everyone thought was going to win.
Yeah.
But hey, on his 3rd throw, he set a new Olympic record with a 212.5-foot throw. That's amazing.
So I just want to point this out. On all 4 of these Olympics, he's pretty much improved 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet.
Yep.
And nobody else can really keep up with that. And it's pretty amazing.
He's just here's the bar. Just going to raise it a little bit.
Yep.
Just a scotch. See if you guys are
in.
Do it. Let's see. We'll see what happens. But 4th gold medal. His 4th gold medal throwing a discus at the Olympics. And he is the first, obviously not the last, but he is the first of anybody in the world to do that 4 straight times.
Yeah, 4 consecutive.
Oh, that's so cool. That's
awesome.
So amazing. After the 68 games, though, he does end up retiring. But he kind of wants to get back into it.
This is an interesting one.
This is kind of weird.
76 Olympics.
Well, not in the Olympics. He was training for him.
Okay. Yeah.
And he had talked about how at that point he started taking anabolic steroids because he hadn't taken them before. But now that he's 40 years old, they're not illegal and they're probably not piss testing you. So
well, they're not illegal, and he's getting them under the guise of a doctor. So
yeah.
what happens is he actually stops taking them because his blood pressure goes crazy.
And this will be something that comes into play later in his life, but it affects his blood pressure so much that it caused so much fluid to be around his heart that he was legally dead for a small, short period of time.
Yep.
And after that, he came out against taking them.
Well, he said that athletes should be really focusing in on technique.
Exactly, more technique than muscle mass and building that type of thing.
And this is what I brought up earlier, was he felt like anabolic steroids really destroyed the culture of athlete camaraderie that him...
Because you weren't trying to get an edge, you were always trying to get an edge on people.
That him and Babka had.
Yeah.
It was very much like that was destroyed, he felt like, later in these Olympics.
In 1980, he tried out again. He tried out again at age 44. While he didn't make the team, he finished 4th in the trials. He set his own personal record of almost 228 feet at 43.
Which I just want to say, he was one off of being in his 5th Olympics.
And you know what? He probably would have won. He probably would have won.
Well, he had an unofficial throw that would still be a world record today when he was 44, and it was 245 feet.
Which is crazy.
It's an unofficial world record because it was just him out there just hucking it.
But like if you think from 56 to 80, so that's 24 years, he goes 188 feet in 1956. In 1980, he's not even making the team, and it's almost 228 feet.
Yep.
That's 40 feet more. Like,
that's how much he propelled this sport.
That's what I mean. Is like he freaking just took it to a new level.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool. I'm sorry. I think that's awesome.
No, I love it. Yeah.
But so 245 feet. After his discus throwing career is over, he gets into the arts, I should say. One story I wanted to bring up from his childhood, because he's from New York. His grandparents lived in Manhattan, and they had an awesome art collection, apparently. And he was like, so that made such an impact on him that he just got super into art and art culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he painted throughout his later life and started this foundation, which I actually really like. It is called the Art of the Olympians, which is Olympic athletes creating art, and then they display it. And they kind of went on like these little East Coast tours and stuff like that. And somebody that was involved in this was FloJo.
FloJo, yeah. It would just encouraging former Olympians to paint. If you didn't know, Oerter was his painting was much like Jackson Pollock.
Very abstract. Very
just like crazy. And he would, when people would buy his paintings, he'd throw his discus into the paint, right?
Yep.
And if it landed on a certain side, he would sign the discus and give it to the person that bought the artwork.
Yeah, it's like a little extra thing, like, here you go.
Yeah. One thing about his Olympic career I didn't end up getting to, he carried the Olympic flag in 1984, and also the torch.
Also the torch.
In 96. Sorry, Eric Heiden. I guess you had to throw a discus. But as you can see, his we had talked about before, his health started catching up to him. The high blood pressure in 2003, that was the event which caused him to go to the hospital and legally be dead for a bit because of the fluid around his heart. But he still kept up with all of his painting.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, because that art for the Olympics, it was the really inspired former athletes to get into the arts, but they also had huge galas and showings of it.
Yeah. Yep.
Like they had one in Times Square for a while, and people would come and pay to see it, and it was really almost like the camaraderie again.
Oh yeah, that's what he was trying to bring back, is that Olympic, like we're all competing together, but look at what we can do together.
Yeah, and this was happening all through the mid 2000s, and he's not like in bad shape or anything, but this is when kind of all of the health problems kind of start kicking up again.
Yeah. They say that he needs like a new heart or a stent in his heart. I forget which one it was.
He needed a heart transplant.
He needed a heart transplant.
Yeah,
so.
And this is 2007. So like the mid 2000s is when all of the art stuff was going on.
Yep.
He even got the used to the before this. He even got use from the U.S. Olympic Committee to use Olympians, art for the Olympians.
Yes.
So I mean, that's how meaningful it was. What he said after he was told he needed a heart transplant, though, was, "I've had an interesting life. and I'm going to go out with what I have.
Yeah.
That's just, oh my gosh.
I love it. And it's so in his personality, if that makes sense. Just like, nah, I'm just going to go out with what I got.
So appreciative of everything that he's done, and like looking back at how special his life was. And eventually ended up dying October 1st, 2007, in his home in Fort Myers. But this guy's in the Olympics Hall of Fame. He's in the Suffolk County Sports Hall of Fame in New York. I mean, this guy is a Hall of Famer for everything, basically. Yep. And the best discus thrower in world history, in my opinion. All right.